Hello and welcome to part 5 of daily running NixOS. I had a plan for this video, but as it often happens with me, nothing went like planned. I recorded a whole session where I set up Home Manager in my home directory, but all I have to show is a freeze frame from the first second. When I started reorganizing this setup, the first priority was to pull the entire NixOS configuration out of /etc/NixOS. That directory is owned by root, which means every single change requires sudo. Every edit in NeoVim opens in read-only mode until you escalate, and most importantly, you can't keep the repository in your normal user's Git workflow without constantly juggling permissions. By moving the flake into the home directory, you get a fully Git-tracked codebase that behaves like any other project. Edits happen as your user, NeoVim sees your plugins, and you can experiment in branches, and Home Manager can manage .files side by side with the system definition. The only time you need sudo now is for NixOS rebuild switch and not for day-to-day editing. Everything lives under a single flake. The Nix packages are pinned to NixOS 25.05 for the system build. Nix packages unstables are specified so the NixVim flake can follow a new package set. The Home Manager from release 25.05 for the user level configuration is also added. Then we have NixVim pulled in as a flake, and in the end there is Nix Gaming and Star Citizen for the upstream gaming packages to play Star Citizen. The flake output declares one host, it wires NixOS to include configuration.nix, then layers the Home Manager modules. As you can see on the right, we have the user packages modules, the user path for the Home Manager, special arguments, and the backup file extension. So the Home Manager is evaluated inline during NixOS rebuild using the same inputs that NixOS gets. Then we have the system level configuration. The configuration.nix looks familiar, but a few key things changed. There was an error in the Nix packages. That's why I added the Nix packages.overlays. This prevents an error when installing a NixVim that happened with me. It is the attopile not found error. There is a tiny overlay stop for the packages.overlay, so NixVim's LSP option, which references the attopile package, can evaluate on 25.05 and doesn't throw this error. There was another fix that I've seen on the internet. There's a screenshot on the right, but that did not work for me. If you have a better solution for this, feel free to comment it. So the rest of the files keeps hardware services and system packages minimal. Only globally required apps like DaVinci Resolve Studio or Star Citizen stay in the environment packages in the configuration.nix. Everything user-facing, or for me, is now handled in the Home Manager. So the Home Manager lives under Home. I have a directory for all my configuration files, and inside there is a Home directory, and inside of there is a LUIX or a modules folder for the default Nix. The default Nix enables unfree packages at a user level. It sets a username, home path, state version, and so on. It turns on XDG that we talked about in the last episode. It just enables the fonts for everything. It also forces the Nix profile to link with the Home Manager generation, so user packages appear in path, even though etc NixOS isn't hosting the repository anymore. Then we also define explicit imports for reusable modules like the base.nix, application.nix, CLI, media, programming, kitty, NixVim, build and push is one that I made myself, and then zshell.nix. Let's have a quick overview of all these modules. So the base.nix are just core utilities like wget, ripgrep, unzip, stow, and such things. Then we have application.nix. There are just many graphical user interfaces in there like Discord, Firefox, LibreOffice, Steam, and such applications. In CLI.nix are just terminal toolings. I enable Git, Tmux, and Yazi, for example, in there, and maybe also some settings. Then we have media. Those are mostly for audio media production tools like Audacity, Easy Effects, FFmpeg, Orca Slicer. In programming.nix, I have a development stack. There is GCC in there, Make, Node.js, Python, Lua, PHP, and such things. Just all the frameworks are thrown in there. Then we have Kitty. All the Kitty configurations that we expressed declaratively before are now in here. I will show more about that later on. Then we have NixVim. We import NixVim via the Home Manager module and set up a basic NeoVim configuration like the default editor, but we could also use it for all the plugins. That will be in another episode probably. Then we have the build and push.nix. It provides the build all, flake only, push only, and push config scripts that I did before via the write shell script bin. So we ensure that I can easily move it, use it, and I will show more about that later on. Then we have the zshell.nix. It's just a full shell setup with maybe all my C shell, auto suggestions, syntax highlighting, history, and Kitty integration and such things. Because these modules all live in the user space, editing any of the desktop environments, for example Kitty or Seashell, no longer requires root privileges. NeoVim uses your regular plugins, and Home Manager updates these files safely with automatic Home Manager backups when there is a problem. So to bring it all together, the final architecture looks like this. The flake orchestrates both system and user layers, and the user config is broken into clear modules. And all editing testing happens in the home repository without sudo. When it's time to deploy, I just run sudo nixOS rebuild switch or use my module. So let's zoom into two special sources of modules, the build push nix and the kitty nix. First of all, the build push. It is a scripted workflow inside Home Manager. This module recreates the old build and push script that I wrote with the commands. This helper is directly inside Home Manager. It uses write shell script bin, so they are version controlled, reproducible, and always available on $path. There is a shortened pseudocode that you can see. The script path aggregates the runtime dependencies like bash, git, nix, nixOS rebuilds, core utils, and so on. So the script doesn't rely on whatever needs to be installed. Push config is a rewrite of the old push config.sh from episode 2, I think. It logs, checks each repository, it commits if there is a stage change, then it pushes it to the current branch. It also carries over the SSH agent reservation when sudo is needed. The build all and flake only are two different build scripts. The build all just builds everything, the flake only focuses on the flake, updates it, and builds it. The push only is just executing push configs. Because they're in Home Manager, you can always invoke build all with an optional commit message if you want to from any shell, and the script will always match your repository state. Here you can see an example. Instead of managing the kitty conf manually, we translate the entire config into Nix attributes. Kitty's module lets you set fonts, settings, inject raw config snippets via extra config. Here's a very shortened pseudocode sketch. So what's inside? Every line from the old kittyconf font family, powerline symbol, cursor trails, URL stylings, tabs, and so on was mapped directly into the settings attribute set. If Kitty expects a single string as settings, for example the tab field with a few numbers, we can just store it as a string, and it interprets it and uses it. The boolean-like values use Kitty's actual syntax, so yes, no, or always. As you can see, fonts are handled like this. You just use the font, create a block, add the name and the size, and you're done with it. Now, updating Kitty is just editing the module. Home Manager takes care of the linking from kittyconf and backing up the old file if it existed. Yeah, those were mostly the changes that I wanted to show you. I just reiterated them now. I think for the next video, I'm planning to do the NixVim config. If you have any suggestions or any ideas what I could do different, feel free to leave a comment. Also, I'm planning to do an advent of code, meaning from the 1st of December to the 24th, I should or want upload a video every day and do a little project. If you're interested in joining or have any ideas what I could do or have any suggestions, feel free to comment. Also, if you like the style of video with not too much recording from the screen but more like animations and so on, give me a thumbs up so I can see if I should do that for the advent of code. Nonetheless, thank you so much for visiting, listening to me, and hope to see you next time. Goodbye.